frankly, this is the perfect session to close the event because event success requires cross-functional support. And so I am thrilled to welcome our lovely panelists. We've got Karli Williamson, who's Marketing Campaign Manager at Kitbash 3D. We've got Karlyanna Kopra-Burton, Senior Manager at Simpplr. And we have Payton O'Neal, an early stage cybersecurity and DevOps marketing leader. As a group, they're going to be sharing how to leverage your full marketing for success alongside our fabulous moderator, who you all know, Lisa Gregory of Gregory Event Services. So welcome on stage, everyone. And Lisa, passing you the virtual microphone.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate you, Chloe. All right. So we have Payton. Hi, Payton. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And Miss Karli.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Two of my favorites.
Yay, yeah, me too. And then we have Karlyanna, who might pop on, but she's having some technical difficulties. So if she does, great. If not, we've got a great panel here. So this is where we bring it all together. We had day one to talk about trade shows and field marketing, day two to talk about user conferences and VIP events, and day three has been focused on experiential marketing and ROI. This panel today is going to bring it together as far as how to work with the marketing team cross-functionally so that we can excel in all areas. So first question, or actually let's do a little introduction so everybody can get to know you a little bit better. So Payton, why don't you go first and just introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Payton O'Neal. I have been doing marketing mostly in cybersecurity and DevOps as mostly an early stage leader, kind of cross-functional building functions from events to ops to product marketing and content. So really excited to share many experiences from early stage. Also went through a big acquisition and have some bigger company experience too. User conferences, VIP happy hours, lots of trade shows. If anyone is in cybersecurity, you know all the trade shows. So yeah, excited to chat.
Perfect. Karli.
Yeah. So I'm Karli Williamson. I've had the pleasure of working with both Lisa and Payton. I'm currently a marketing campaign manager at Kitbash 3D, just like B2B e-commerce, which is a new space for me, and I'm really excited about it. I have a long history of event marketing. As Payton said, lots and lots of trade shows. Payton and I have been all over the world together, as have Lisa and I, as well as some own conferences. So yeah, I come at it from both a life cycle marketing, demand gen, and the kind of event marketing side as well.
All right. And to give you guys some background too, these folks have worked in a variety of different companies for many, many years. Karli and I actually worked at the same company, which was an association management company in tech. I've also worked in nonprofits and done all sorts of stuff in my 25 years. So we're coming to you with lots of experience. So we're going to talk about promotional outreach first. The first question is, organic versus paid marketing. How should teams balance their efforts for maximum event impact? Payton, we're going to go with you first.
Huge question, and lots of, I think, caveats here. I think it'll vastly differ for the type of event and the budget and the goals and the internal goals and your executive buy-in. But generally, like any event, I like to approach organic first is basically always capped. You have so many LinkedIn followers, you have so many email subscribers, your employees have so many LinkedIn followers, your speakers, if it's an own user conference, have so many followers. So starting with doing the best you can calculate what that potential reach is as realistically as possible. And then in an ideal world, moving on to paid by looking at ideal cost per lead across all of your channels, whether it's paid social or if you're working with a publisher to do a blast or a podcast or working with influencers, whatever that might be, to ideally kind of sandwich top down, help with your budget to determine what your KPIs are, or with your budget, or with the KPIs, determine how much budget you need. Obviously, that's not always the case. If you have unlimited budget, amazing. Never ever the case, although Karli and I have been in that situation one time, which is great. And then always, I think like the X factor is always creativity. So you can sort of like amplify or exponentially increase specific paid or even organic methods with like a more creative approach. And then one thing that maybe is like a sub answer to this question is not only looking at from like KPIs, your lagging KPIs. So not just looking at reg numbers, but also defining early on. And this is more like about selling your plan to executives or the team, what leading metrics. So the number of activities, the things that you can better control, whether it's organic or paid. I think that those that gives you kind of the trifecta of having a well-rounded plan that you can then sell internally and track how well you're executing against it.
Perfect. And Karli, what about you? Anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo everything that Payton says. I think that I've seen a lot of teams put so much energy and pressure on organic, which I think can just be really stressful for a team also. You know, you can only tap your audience so many times. And then I would also, another caveat, as there are lots of caveats to this discussion, I think it's really important to think about who your audience is and where they live. Like, you know, if you're spending a bunch of money on LinkedIn ads and that's not where your audience is, you're not going to get the ROI out of it. And I would also say, like, if the KPIs you're going for are retention and expansions, then don't spend a bunch of money on paid. Like, it doesn't make sense to you. So I think really just like continuing to map back to your goals and being really realistic about how much time your team has to spend on organic and paid, also like revenue, but also like time and energy.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that as far as influencer marketing. So working across the entire marketing org and the entire company and your entire community, sitting down and taking the time to identify who your top influencers are. I think a lot of people don't do that. And then additionally, enabling them, right? Enabling speakers with the speaker promo videos and the cards, enabling your sponsors, having an internal enablement doc and deck and messaging, keeping in the forefront in front of your team to help with just social marketing. If you're excited about something, you give them the capability to easily just copy and paste or repost something, you'll get way more engagement. So working across the entire marketing team and your entire company, you'll accomplish a lot more. All right. So next question, what's a common mistake teams make when driving attendance and how can they avoid it? We'll go with Payton first.
I'm first all the time. I think it's so easy for us to get caught up in the numbers that we commit to. Oftentimes, like the most simplistic being like reg and then attendance. But Karli, you mentioned retention and upsells. Like, I think those are really important. But I think it's very easy to get caught up in the number that you're going to put on your recap slide, whatever that number is. And I think one thing to also focus on that I learned maybe like later in actually working in a bigger company is just as impactful as that sort of like quantitative number is also the qualitative. It's super time consuming, but putting in the time to like actually look at the titles and the logos and sharing that both like in your recap and your progress updates. And then going a step further and having like one-on-one conversations with your sales team. This is maybe more for like pre-event outreach, whether it's a happy hour or a user conference, making those connections, knowing where your reps are in their regions and what their target counts are, and calling those out one-on-one. Again, super manual and time consuming. But that's, I think, what is going to make or break that like down funnel success, which oftentimes is like meetings booked from an event. So much effort needs to go into the pre-event reach out and not just like promotion, but like putting time on the calendar for the actual event, whether virtual or in person, probably more relevant for in person. So not basically a short answer is not going the extra mile to make the connections with the real people, and instead being too swept up in the big number on the slide.
Love it. Love it. And we have Karlyanna. Oops, she just dropped again. Darn it. She made a quick cameo. So thank you, Karlyanna, for making a quick cameo. She's having some technical difficulties, but she'll try to come back. So Karli, same question over to you. What's a common mistake teams make when driving attendance, and how can they avoid it?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo what Payton says. I think that getting really specific about who your ICP is and setting yourself up operationally to define those metrics outside of just like registrations and attendees or booth scans, or how many people showed up to your ancillary event. I think that I've seen like that be a common mistake that a lot of event marketers make, is they focus on these kind of like vanity metrics. But what your leadership and your sales team really cares about is like, okay, but who was there? And I think that part of avoiding that of like driving attendance is also what you do with them. So making sure that you have that post-event follow-up really nailed down and really solid, so that even if you don't hit that attendance number, you still have something to show for it.
Yeah. I'll add on to that. So the number one thing I see they have mistakes in is they spray and they pray. Y'all, you can't spray and pray. That's you can't do that. You have to be very, very specific on who you're trying to get there. So my recommendation is, if you're doing an event, work with your sales team, actually create your list of people that have to attend, have to be there for success, and then make sure they're getting personal invites. Another thing people do is they wait. Okay? If you create a list of 500 people, say, I'm going to get these people registered by this date, these people registered by this date. Then you're not just crossing your fingers. Get those personalized invites out. Marketing should not just be sending a bunch of emails and crossing their fingers that people come in. Those days are over. We get too many emails. There's too much noise. So be very prescriptive. And Karlyanna is back. Hi.
Well, I think we always talk about, as events professionals, poise and calmness in chaos is an important trait. So yes, thank you for your patience with all of the things that happen over minutes.
Yeah, no, you're killing it. You're doing a great job.
No.
All right. So
jumping in just a little bit about that invite, one piece that I always think about is when people are at events, it's their opportunity to bond with their team as well. And so I know when it's like director level and above, or it has to be this certain tier, when I've been in that position to be invited to an event and I'm with my support team or people that I work with, I don't want to go unless they can come. And so sometimes being able to say, and I wouldn't necessarily say that to an invitation, like, well, if, this person can't come with me, I'm not going to go, but adding a little bit of, and if there's anyone on your team that you'd want to bring with you, let us know. We'd love to accommodate it. And so just that extra step or that extra bit of inclusivity can really help on people actually coming and joining, because I might be the director and running this event, but I don't want to leave this amazing person that's supporting me and making it all happen out of that opportunity. And so a lot of directors might have their senior managers or their, direct reports who are actually going to do the legwork and do the research for your companies. And again, kind of the director might have the signing or the buying power or above, but it really is those managers and those other levels that do the due diligence to then promote your product, to promote your software. So just that's kind of my thought, is that little extra inclusivity step can go a long way in people showing up.
Well, and it helps move that lead right through the funnel. Boop, boop. So if you can get them to buy in even more and be like, hey, if I'm going to go to the event, but I can bring Karli, am I going to no show? Nope.
Yeah, or it's a lot more fun, right? Like if Lisa and I are working an event together and we get to go together and network and meet people, it's a lot less intimidating. You're reducing the friction, right? So it's not always adding fuel to something. It's not more emails, more outreach, more dings and pings, but eliminating the friction of why somebody might not come or might not attend.
Yep. And I think communicating the value of the event, what we're seeing a lot of is a lot of events are coming in last minute. I just had this idea and we have to do it. So your ROI is going to be
all been there.
yeah, your ROI is just automatically, you can just tell your manager, your ROI is just automatically going to go down because you didn't provide the strategic time to actually enable the entire marketing organization, your entire company, your entire community. You have to give your prospects time. You have to be respectful of your speakers. So feel free to push back. We can even do a little ideation session, follow-up session on what ideal timelines are for these types of events to communicate to your managers. But anything to add there? We'll go to Karlyanna.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just real quick, I know, Payton was mentioning the importance of the follow-up, the one-on-one with the sales team. What I've also found is really helpful is develop those relationships and those champions within the sales organization, so that when you're doing your post-event recap, tap one of the players from the sales team that's really well respected and has a different voice and a different lens to be part of your presentation. So it's not always marketing talking to sales about the ROI and the event, but that you have these sales champions and these people that are closing deals and making money saying, I'm really glad I supported the event that Payton organized. X, Y, and Z came out of it. This is what we're doing and this is what's happening. Because even just that shift in the narrative and that shift in perspective changes the delivery, and it stops being you banging that meeting drum, like book meetings, show up, help me, support me, to wow, there's really this value add and it's successful for these other highly respected President's Club attendee folks on my sales team.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, Karli, I'm going to ask you next. I'm going to change up the question. But in our careers, there is a moment, right? From when we go from we're a logistics manager to when we're an event marketer, we're an event producer. So when that happened for you and you went into a new company and you had to utilize the entire marketing org, what were your learnings there and how did you activate them for success?
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of it was like speaking the language of the rest of the teams. Like, I think as an event marketer, like your role is really thinking about the experience of the people that are there, like what happens afterward, what happens before. But like touting like, oh, we have this VIP room and all of those things. Like, it's not necessarily what sales is interested in, what leadership is interested in. And so that was a really big learning experience for me, and kind of watching like, how the rest of the team spoke about their programs. Like, the ROI or the KPIs that I'm working towards might not necessarily be the same thing that like product marketing or demand gen is, but we can all be speaking the same language because it all rolls up to what marketing as a whole is trying to do. And that rolls up to what the company is trying to do. And so I think for me, a lot of it was just like speaking the language and figuring out what was most important. And so even like, oh, and here's the MQLs, it was like, and then what? Like, great. Like we've got those initial, like you have those top of funnel, that's great. We can pass these off. But like what happens next? And I think one of the things that I did early on was create like 30, 60, 90 days follow-up. So I think we also have a tendency to say like, and this is how it went and it was great. But what's the follow-up, especially for an event you're going to try and repeat? Being able to early on show that value. And so when you do have an event that comes up, 3 months later and you need not only like the funding for it and the budget for it, but the buy-in. And then also that's going to take time from the whole marketing team, right? Like it takes a village. And so having them go, oh, cool. Like I saw her 90-day report for a similar event or a similar program. And so, there's trust that's built there too. And in understanding that, you know what you're driving towards, and it's not these like vanity metrics.
Yeah. Payton, what about you?
Yeah, lots of points touched there. Totally agree that you have to be individualistic in who you're speaking to, including the marketing org. I think, especially bigger events, having every single person involved. I personally believe like content and product marketing should be just as much involved, especially in the messaging of whatever signage, of course, like booth messaging. but also the post-event success. The whole team, the whole marketing team should be just as bought in as the events marketer. And then in terms of buy-in, I think being individually focused on different leaders, if you're talking to a sales leader to get buy-in, maybe it's helpful to look at the logos that are attending the event that you know will be there, to talk about opportunities, meetings booked, look at competitors. Obviously, sales leaders are very competitive. So competitor X, Y, and Z are doing this. I find with leaders, with like CEO, founder types, they really care about being either the best or the most innovative or the most creative. So really like emphasizing how this event is in line with like more strategic initiatives. Either it's like your marketing plan initiative or like maybe in line with the mission. It sounds like a little silly, but these like very high level strategic thinkers really do. It's a different currency. So don't start talking about MQLs to your founder, CEO. Talk about how this aligns to the mission and the vision of the company and how it'll position the company in XYZ way.
Yeah, absolutely. So Karlyanna, I'm going to ask you to add on here in just a second, but I had a CEO give me feedback young in my career. And he said, Lisa, you're amazing at the logistics. Like you can kill it, but you need to work on getting people in your boat, right? How do you get people in your boat? Because if you're just hanging out all by yourself, you're not going to be successful. So figure out the makeup of your team. Maybe you have a big team, maybe it's small, and get those people in your boat. So Karlyanna, this question's for you. How do you get the whole marketing org, who obviously they're not event planners, this is not their full-time job, right? You have to get them to pay attention and help you. How do you get them bought in to your event programs so that they are in your boat?
Well, I think it kind of starts from the integrated approach that the marketing team is taking. So that we're not doing these like random one-off events, but that they're part of a larger integrated campaign, and that it's just a next step or a milestone or something that you can say, hey, we're going to have this product release. It's great if we do it 2 weeks before Black Hat so that we can have all the conversations and showcase it at Black Hat. Let's pair with the press release. There's GitLab had a really cool mid-show at reInvent last year where they did this big release, and it drove a ton of traffic to their booth and a ton of action because they had one branding, and then the next day, boom, it was this big product release, right? So trying to be strategic with the rest of the organization and not trying to kind of Frankenstein your event on top of the other plan, but build it in from the beginning. And so it can be tricky because we all know launch dates move. There's like malleability in everyone else's schedules, typically, except event people. Like just because that move doesn't mean we get to kick reInvent down the road or Black Hat down the road. That's still going to happen. And so the integrated approach does require like an A/B. A is what we want to do. B is what happens when I get that phone call that nothing's going to be ready in time. But I think that, again, making your event a milestone and a highlight in the campaign that the marketing team is running is a great way for people to have something to look forward to, and that punctuates some of these larger, 6, 8, 12-month campaigns that you're running.
Yeah.
And to add on to that, also a tool, like your content team should be using events in person as a tool to create video content, do interviews. Your PMMs should be speaking with analysts. Like every single person on a marketing team in one way or another should be able to have a positive impact on the event execution and be able to use that event, whether they're there in person or not, for their personal success. You might have to get creative, but easier in small teams as well. Like probably not like major, huge 200-person marketing teams, but small, lean teams, everyone should have a hand.
If you didn't attend day 2, go back to day 2 and watch Devin's session. It will totally transform the way that you do work. He talks a lot about executive buy-in and team buy-in as well. But Karli, go ahead and add on.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say and also include those support people, right? So we think of design as we all collaborated on this and then we pass it to design. And I think like teams like that, like web dev, like a lot of teams like that get kind of like and also we have this, your social media person is like, here's this event, we have a brief. And I think that like those people can be really critical to the success of an event, even if it's like a trade show, a small ancillary event, like including those people at the beginning rather than just like handing them another task and putting something on their Asana board. It's like those are very creative, like critical assets to the success of it. Like all of your messaging, your content, all of that should be reflected in the design, in the emails you send out, in the web dev, like in your social media. And so I think it's also really important to include those people from the beginning. Like one of the things I do is have like a kickoff sync, and no matter how big or small your part is, like I want to hear your ideas. Like it's not we have copy decided, like go do your thing. And so I think it's really important to include those people from the beginning. They're more likely to hit deadlines as well. Like those teams are overloaded, but when they feel like they have a stake in the game, they're going to hit those deadlines for you, and you won't have to pay extra for your booth backdrop.
Well, and I do just want to add with bringing everybody in, I think it's really important. I know it sounds kind of corny, but that attitude of gratitude. So not only do you bring everybody in, but when you are presenting, when you are showcasing your event to groups, you really want to be able to say like, Karli had a great contribution, and highlight if you came up with a really interesting traffic driver, or Payton has sourced this idea for swag. We're really excited to try it out, so that people know you're the kind of leader and the event manager that recognizes contributions, recognizes all the effort. And I think when you are the event head, you get a lot of praise and a lot of recognition when things go well. You also get a lot of criticism if it doesn't, but I think we're all a very used to things going well group. And so I think it's really important to thank those, like you said, the design team and the people behind the scenes. If somebody's helping with social copy, because they don't typically get the same sort of recognition as the people that are there on the floor, running the events, hosting the events, having that face time. And so by really showcasing appreciation for everyone's talents and contributions, it builds that culture and that team that works together, that connects, and that people want to be on your projects and want to have fun. So it, again, reduces that friction of people being like more work instead of, oh, wait, that's a really fun way to spend my time.
Yeah. And one way that I make sure I'm doing all this stuff, because guess what? There's competing priorities all the time. Put it in your work back schedule. Okay. So same with all the ideation and ROI, build that, create a line. I'm going to do executive buy-in. I'm going to do my RACI. I'm going to do my kickoff call. I'm going to do my pre-con. I'm going to do my appreciation. Add it in your work back schedule. So one thing that I am still trying to perfect, and maybe you guys are too, is reporting. There's over-reporting, under-reporting. How do you report and like keep your team communication streamlined via Slack or email or however, so everyone is involved in, hey, everything's going great, or it's not going great, we need to change things in this way. So Payton, what about you?
I love that you mentioned a RACI in the chat. Always have a bomb. And to the point, like building everything into your work back schedule, even if it's for you. I think it's very common if you know mentally you're like managing this project and you have all these tasks, but it doesn't really help the broader team to know what tasks you're working on. I think that does yourself a disservice in the future when you're reporting all of the work that goes into a project. I love a bill of materials. So build that bomb, like put as much effort into like the organization, the realistic time it's going to take. Setting that expectation up front is going to make everything less painful down the line. Even if you need to advocate, you said earlier, if it's crunch time, you don't have enough time, having a realistic timeline for how long every single thing is going to take, internal, if you need external assets made, that'll help you really set expectations with leadership early on. And then it kind of takes reporting out of the question. Like if you have a great bomb, you have really good timelines, then you can kind of let that bill of materials, plus of course the RACI. So making sure that everybody knows exactly what they're responsible for, informed, consulted, etc. Thank you, Stephanie, for putting that in the chat. And then you can kind of let it manage you. I know that sounds kind of like a cop-out, but it's the most gratifying thing to me to really put the effort up front and then let the work do itself.
Yeah. And Karli, how do you do centralized project management? So sometimes we're working with massive companies. There's a lot of, turnover. It can get chaotic. All of a sudden, if you got a lot of funding, there's a huge hiring round. How do you manage the project management cross-functionally across the marketing org to make sure that nothing slips through the cracks?
Yeah, I think that, obviously a task management system is going to be super critical. I think that getting people aligned and feeling involved, feeling like they are accountable to things, feeling like they are responsible for things, but also that you have that excitement built in, I think will also help. I am contributing to this, not like I have a to-do list for this. And so I think that that's really important. I also think predictability is really important when it comes to internal communication. So I know exactly where to look for my tasks. I know exactly where to look for how we're progressing towards our KPIs. I think the same is for stakeholders. They don't need to be in your ClickUp board. They don't need to see all of that nitty gritty, but maybe you have a deck that they know is updated every Friday and that they know they can go there. You have a Slack update that you give that's very templatized. Everyone knows where to look for things and they know that it's consistent across all your events. I think is really important. Just that otherwise you get those one-off asks of what am I supposed to do this week? Hey, where are we at with these KPIs? And so having people know exactly where to look and when, I think is going to be really critical to not only the project management side, but also just minimizing that anxiety of hey, we're spending $100,000 on this or $500,000 on this. Where are we mapping to? I think that that's really important so that people feel eases that anxiety and then also helps you be able to focus on the execution and the marketing of this rather than managing everyone else's time and anxiety.
Yeah, sure.
So Karli, on something you said?
For sure.
On tracking KPIs, Karli, we did a very big event together with a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And we all know as event marketers that registration is not linear, that we have a lot more reg closer to the time of the event. So you developed sort of almost like a formula for each week, how many reg we should be up to. And so communicating that really well and then sharing that consistently was amazing. And you weren't always having to explain we only have 10% of reg, but we're only at week, we're 10 weeks till the event. It sort of eliminated that stress. And then you always feel like you're behind, even though you're not. That was really important. And then coupled with tracking how your budget is being spent and the typical time that you expect budget, media dollars to be in the market. That took a lot of words you didn't even have to say. If you just can present all that data consistently, you never had to feel like you were on the back foot trying to explain why you're behind when you were.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. And hugely valuable.
Yeah. We are pretty much done with this panel, but I do want to leave everybody with one closing thought. Yeah. Again,
and can I add one thing for people just quickly? Sure. So when they were talking about pace reports and different ways of tracking to see if you're behind, for those of you who are doing international events, something I really want to encourage you to do is follow the currency exchange rates and the trends, because when there's a dip and you pay down your bills when the currency is more favorable for your funding, you can actually save your clients, your team a ton of money by being strategic when you pay. Again, it's a risk, it's a kind of a gamble, but when you look at past patterns, you look at past industry trends in the global markets, saying, hey, we're at a really good time right now. I know this deposit's not due till X date, but let's pay it now. I've saved clients hundreds of thousands of dollars following those trends.
I hope you have a side hustle like trading currency. You should.
Everybody in finance.
Again, I know that's not relevant to this, but when you're talking about registration pace reports and tracking that, I did just want to throw that out there as like
That's
a concrete thing you can do to, again, if you're hosting events overseas. I know the world's a little bit chaotic and uncertain right now, but you can still get some really solid wins for your budget by just putting in that extra layer of effort.
Yes, love it. And I will leave with saying, make sure you understand the whole cross-functional marketing org and company, what their workload is, design, product marketing. Make sure you're kind of forecasting that, because we have one lens, right? But we need to walk the world through various lenses from people and throughout your organization. So that will really help you win. And then don't forget to forecast. If you're not hitting your timeline or you don't know where you're going, no one else is going to know where they're going. They're following you. So you have to forecast. So thank you, Payton. Thank you, Karli. Thank you, Karlyanna. That was awesome. Really appreciate you all for joining us today.
Thanks
you for having me. Thanks.
All right, I'm gonna have you guys drop and have Chloe join me back on stage. Hi, Chloe, we made it.
Yes, amazing.
I can't believe that we're already at the end of day 3 of the Event Professionals Now, your Choose Your Own Adventure virtual experience created just for you, the Event Professional.
Lisa, it's been such a pleasure to not only host today, but to learn with everyone that's attended and really to bring this amazing content to fellow event professionals, because when we lift each other up, obviously we up-level our entire community. For our attendees that are still online, before you drop, we have a couple of reminders. First of all, please, please, please complete our NPS survey. Your feedback means the world to us, and it's definitely a robust measurement metric after everything we've been talking about today. So make sure you get that in. And secondly, if you'd like to provide even more details about what you loved, what you learned, or maybe even areas that we could improve, there's always the option to do so, because both quant and qual data are important to us. And thank you to everybody in advance.